You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Chef Allen. Thanks for listening. Coming up, we'll recap last week's action on the gridiron and get you set for this week's contest, including our Spotlight Game of the Week, which features number 16 Tulane hosting number 21 UCF in a battle for first place in the conference. Corey Gloor of the Tulane Radio Network will join me to discuss that in just a few moments. Meanwhile, as we look at last week's results, it was Tulane downing Tulsa 27-13. Temple routed South Florida 54-28. Bulls head coach Jeff Scott was fired after that game, 4-25 into his third season. UCF defeats Memphis 35-28. Cincinnati topped Navy 20-10. And SMU beat Houston 77-63. No, that was not a basketball score. That was the football score. The combined 140 points marks the highest scoring game in FBS history that did not go into overtime. Houston 63 matched the most in regulation by a losing team in NCAA FBS history. Quite a wild contest there for sure. Looking at this week's action, Thursday, Tulsa at Memphis, 7:30 on ESPN. Memphis leads the all-time series 19-12, and Tulsa won last year, 35-29. On Friday night, East Carolina, Cincinnati, 8 o'clock on ESPN2. East Carolina leads the all-time series 13-12. Cincinnati won last year, 35-13, and with the victory would even up that all-time series before departing for the Big 12. Saturday action has Notre Dame versus Navy, that game being played in Baltimore, a noon kick on ABC. Notre Dame leads the all-time series 78-13 with one tie, and the Fighting Irish won last year 34-6. SMU at South Florida, noon on ESPNU. That all-time series tied at 3 games apiece. SMU won last year's contest 41-17. Temple is at Houston, 3 o'clock on ESPN+. Houston leads the all-time series 7-1, including last year's contest by a 37-8 score. Up next, we will talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week. Number 21 UCF at number 16 Tulane. Corey Gloor from Tulane Radio will join me to discuss that when the AAC report comes back after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
All right, time now to talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week, and it is a doozy. We have Tulane hosting UCF in the rankings, depending on which poll you go by, in the CFP or the AP or the coaches. It's either 16 or 17 for Tulane, 21 or 22 for UCF. Either way, both teams are ranked. It's a big contest first place in the conference on the line. And Corey Gloor from Tulane Radio joins me to talk about that. Corey, great to have you back.
Thank you for having me back again here, Jeff. And what a game we get to talk about here.
Yeah, and this is like perfect. You turn into the month of November when the games really start to mean a lot. And boy, this one certainly meets the credentials of meaning a lot.
It's might be the biggest game that this program has had in 24 years. I mean, that's where this is right now. The season that has unfolded here in New Orleans has caught many people by surprise. And now with this game upcoming and with who looms behind this game, Tulane will have to go through the rigors of this if they want to be playing for a championship. And I think they've proven a good number of people wrong in their first 9 games of the year. So we'll see what the final 3 hold. But it should be one heck of a day coming up here on Saturday.
Yeah, and last time you were on, we were talking about how this team, made the turnaround, starting to turn the corner after just 2 wins a year ago. And we look at the aspects of the Green Wave, becoming conference contenders in just a short period of time. And you had told me back then, a lot of it had to do with a lot of the returning players who went through a difficult season and how they built the resolve to do what they're doing this year.
It's materialized that way. And that's been, to say it's been a pleasure to watch is an understatement, but coming off of last year. And then, you did have guys like Nick Anderson in the linebacking core and one of this team's captains, talking about vying for a conference championship. And it was met with some skepticism because it was a 2-10 team. And, a lot of guys came back from that team. And so it was experience, but it was a 2-10 team. And so it was, okay, aim high, but, let's see it. And now we're seeing it. So the fact that, they've had a pretty normal season. They haven't had wrenches thrown at them logistically or anything like that. Any sort of minor hurdle that has come across for the bulk of the season so far, they don't get fazed by it because they have been through more than most teams have in the country in the last couple of years.
When we look at the beginning of the season, when they beat, Kansas State, I'm sure that was a great emphasis in getting off to a good start. A close loss at Southern Miss, but then, you bounce back and beat Houston, and then it starts to roll from there.
Yeah, and the Kansas State game was obviously the first one. And at that time, Kansas State was not quite the juggernaut that they have become. And I know that they've lost a couple of years since, but they were just starting to get on the national radar. And so for Tulane to go in there and win, it was the first Power 5 win Willie Fritz has had here. And in his career, he didn't have one at Georgia Southern either. That was the first box to check for this year. And then you come back against your arch rival, and it wasn't a dud per se against Southern Miss, Jeff, but they had 2 kicks blocked, and they had a pick 6 at the end of the game. And so it's literally just like 3 mistakes that cost them that game. And now here we are, a month and a half after that game, and we're still focusing on that being the only loss so far. It's for them to go into Houston right after that disappointment against Southern Miss on a short week, and it's their 3rd string quarterback that has to lead a comeback and win it in overtime. And then they've just played solid football ever since then, and complete football. It's been something else to see what this team has become.
Yeah, and you obviously mentioned Nick Anderson, and this defense is certainly doing some really good stuff, especially here in the last several games.
Yeah, they're back to first in the league in terms of points per game allowed. Their pass defense has been really, really great. And what I've really been impressed with this group is that it's not a flashy defense. They're not a blitzing defense. I think they're one of the worst teams in the league in getting to the quarterback. They only have 14 sacks on the year. And that's a difference from last year. This was a pretty pressure-heavy defense. Now it's a zone defense. It's guys dropping into coverage and being in the right spots, and they're not letting guys get over the top of them. And so, Tulane defensively will give you 5 yards, will give you 10 yards, will give you 12 yards over the middle, but deep shots down the sideline have rarely worked on this team. And then you have a front four that isn't getting as much rush as they had in the past, but a lot of times they're being asked to only rush 3, and they're dropping one of their edge rushers into coverage and changing the role that they have there. And then if something gets past them, there's maybe the best 2 linebackers in the conference right there to stop anything else. And so it's a defense that Chris Hampton has molded where everyone knows where they're supposed to be. And it's not necessarily you go do this, it's you be here. And it has worked unbelievably here in the first 9 weeks.
So as you look at this UCF game, we don't know who UCF starting quarterback is going to be. Do you think there's a little gamemanship going on there to kind of play that role?
Yeah. I think everyone here in New Orleans is anticipating Plumlee being back. But they saw Mikey Keene last year in this game, and it was a close game. It was a really cold day in Orlando. From what I remember, it was a little rainy. It was homecoming, and so it was a low-scoring affair. But and this team actually saw Plumlee last year when he was at Ole Miss. He was at a very different role there last year as he is now at UCF. But they did see him, and so they're very aware of Plumlee's speed, and he doesn't get enough credit for his accuracy and the zip he puts on a ball. Because I think when you see him initially, you just think, well, that guy, he runs a 4.4, and he does run a 4.4, legit 4.4. And so but Mikey Keene does some of that too. And so I think they know whoever they're going to see here for UCF, they're going to have to find a way to contain not just a good throwing quarterback, but one of the better running quarterbacks they may see all year. This is going to be the most talented team Tulane has seen. That includes Kansas State. That includes Houston, who has a lot of talent, but they just, at times, it just doesn't gel. And they'll see Cincinnati and SMU coming up to finish out the year. But what UCF brings, it's hard to find a weak spot to attack. And the benefit here for Tulane is that there's not a ton of weak spots in that group either. It's just 3 stars and not the 4 stars that UCF's been able to acquire under Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, so that's the one contrast. The other contrast is Tulane's offense versus UCF's defense. The Knights have been prone to giving up big plays, but they tighten things up in the red zone. What sort of challenges do you see there for the Green Wave?
Oh, the front 4 are monstrous. It's that simple. That they will be bigger than Tulane's offensive line. And so, I think if there is a slight ding in the armor of UCF, it might be the secondary. It's not a massive issue, especially when the front 4 can cover a lot if any sort of misstep happens in the back 5. So it's going to be imperative that Tulane give Pratt some time to go through his things. And he's been a lot better at that this year, at sticking around the pocket and not bailing out quick. He bailed out a lot last year, and now he has a ton of playmakers around him that are making plays for him. 20 different receivers have caught a ball for this team this year. That's most in the country. And so he trusts so many of these guys and trusts them to find a way to finish the route, find a way to get open. And if not, he'll take it himself. And so if this offensive line is able to give him some time against this UCF front 4, then there might be some of those shots available against the secondary. They weren't really there against Tulsa, but Tulsa runs a very different defense from what we saw against UCF. And it's harder to throw deep on Tulsa than it might be on a UCF team that is aggressive. And so we'll see. He was able to take East Carolina runs a kind of a similar style in my mind. And he was able to kind of take advantage of their eagerness and quick throws and down the sideline and fire deep from time to time. We'll see if that's there against a UCF defense that is ferocious and big. And it's gonna be the biggest test this offensive line has had all year.
What is your overall evaluation, of Pratt's leadership? Because, he's a guy who's been there for a while, and it's always great when you could have a quarterback for, multiple seasons in today's college football. And the fact that he's been through the ups and downs, how important has that been for his leadership?
I mean, he's been a real joy to see develop this year, because he was asked that very question by the New Orleans media today, and he said this is the first year he's had that's been normal, because the hurricane last year got a lot of attention, but it was COVID the year before. And now he's also working with his third offensive coordinator. And so, like, there has not been a lot of stability for him to try and become a true leader of this team. A lot of the guys around him have been around him for a good while now. And so they know his rhythms and he knows theirs. And now that everyone's really on the same page offensively, and his wide receivers just making plays for him. It's a generic thing to say, Jeff, but last year he was just not getting any help there. And that's different this year. It's Jim Swoboda's come in, the offensive coordinator, and just everyone's in lockstep with each other. It's rare to find a false beat. And Michael Pratt's in charge of it all. He loves his coach and this group that has formed around him that he has some experience with. They all are looking to him to guide them, and he's taken the reins very, very emphatically here. And so to see him as confident as he is right now, whereas last year it was a lot of second guessing and being a little bit afraid when pockets were closing on him and not trusting his receivers to get open. That's not there this year. It comes with experience, and it comes with savviness, and it comes with, like we talked about earlier, when stuff's going haywire on you, not getting too panicked about it. He threw a pick against Tulsa. It wasn't the greatest throw in the world that he's ever had. And he bounced back right after that. I mean, it was that you don't get that with a lot of freshmen. And now that he's got 3 years of starting experience under his belt, you're seeing the dividends pay off.
So I think it's pretty safe to say that Willie Fritz will be coach of the year. I think I don't think I'm going out on a huge limb there, but it's very interesting, when you talk about the turnaround this team has made from last year to this year. And, the fact that he's been with the program and has stability to the program has got to be huge.
It's another question that Willie Fritz was asked earlier today. Were you in on the media?
I'm wondering. Yeah.
I mean, it's his 7th year, and it's far and away the best year he's ever had. I mean, the highest win total he's had before this was 7 in a season. So he's already eclipsed that. He's the second winningest coach now in the school's history. And he was asked how this all stayed together after last year. And he's not going to say it's because of me. Of course he won't say that. But he said what's been built here, the culture that's in place, people still want to be here, even when things are going off the rails like they did last year. And so you don't lose a ton of guys in the transfer portal. Maybe one key piece from last year's team was gone, but everyone else came back. You got all your transfers for the portal that you were still keying in on. You got your recruiting class staying intact. Like, all of it stayed together in spite of all of that. And that's a testament to him. He creates an environment that these kids want to be a part of. And that's it. It should not go unspoken just how important that is. Playing for a coach that's going to get you to the NFL gets so much of the attention. But, and there will be a couple of guys here that are going to get some NFL sniffs. There's no question. And Tulane has had a good track record with NFL talent here of late under Willie Fritz. But just coming to a school that is very appealing in terms of academics, and now you're playing some honest, legit big boy football ranked in the college football playoff poll. This is the first year where it's all really come together for Willie Fritz. And he's been building this since 2015. And for it to, be at this point, and heck, I mean, still 3 games to go, Jeff. I mean, I don't think anyone here is counting any chickens yet about the coach of the year or what might loom on December 3rd if they can somehow find a way through this. Tulane fans have seen enough in their past to know that nothing is set. But if somehow Willie Fritz gets overlooked for conference coach of the year, or even heck, national coach of the year, like, he's got to be in that mix for what he's done. Then I'll be as livid as I was about College Game Day not coming here.
yeah. Give me that. had to be a big kick in the groin there a little bit for the Tulane fan.
Yeah, I mean, we felt pretty good about where we sat with that, and yeah, it's been disappointing. There's no question. There's one hell of a story to tell here with this group, and I mean, it's far and away the biggest turnaround in the sport. After everything last year, which, ESPN did come visit us in our Birmingham hotel and focus in on our situation. There's a good second chapter to that I think a lot of people here felt that ESPN would have really enjoyed telling to people. I've always maintained, I remember the years when UCF was clamoring for game day to show up, and I remember that video from Kirk Herbstreit. All right, we're finally coming, and all that stuff. And just, we weren't as, I guess, vocal about it here, but we wanted it. And this school really wanted it. And, the story here, I think, would alert a lot of people into watching College Game Day this Saturday. To me, it's rarely been about the game that they're at. It's about where you're at and what is there to showcase. The best game days this year were App State and Jackson State a couple weeks ago, and just highlighting those instead of, oh, here's Texas again. And I know TCU's fourth in the playoff poll, and so you're going to put them in there, but that's the second time they've been in College Game Day this year. It's just, this program has worked its tail off. And they're not clamoring for national attention, but it sure would have been special for this school and this city to have that come here for, again, the biggest game that this campus has seen in 2 decades. And the UCF folks I know you guys were banging the drum for it too, and we appreciated that. Trust me. But it stung. There's no way around it. But this group has done a really good job of eliminating a lot of that stuff, and they'll move past it if there is any immediate disappointment. There's no question.
Well, you do make a great point. To me, Game Day is a much better show when they're going to these new places and really broadening the horizons of college football. When they go to Alabama and schools like that, they don't get the crowds they used to get in years gone by. And it's great when you see, when UCF had it here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just electrifying.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I'm not going to put, before I head out to the stadium on Saturday, I'm not going to make sure I tune in Game Day to see how Austin's doing. It just, we've seen it. We know the deal. And, but, I watched when they were in Jackson a few weeks ago. A few years ago, I watched when they were in Orlando, because that was such a big national story, what UCF was doing those couple of years. And for ESPN to kind of begrudgingly acknowledge it finally, it's like, you're damn right it's worth your time here. Mm-hmm. And then Cincinnati got it when they were doing the same thing. And yeah, I mean, there's one hell of a tale to tell here, and it's not done being written yet, certainly this year, but the first 3 chapters of this have been really, really special. And I guess the nation will have to find a different way to really read it.
Well, hopefully that will get told on a more national level. We certainly enjoy telling it here because it's a great story for the conference as well, for sure. So how do you see things playing out on Saturday?
I don't know. I really, that's not me just splitting anything here, Jeff. You got the 2 best defenses in the conference. You have top half of the league offenses here. You have really, really good special teams across the board. I think this game is going to be a real blast. I really do. I think it will lean slightly higher scoring because of the possibility that UCF can let something sneak by them there, and just the playmakers that the Knights have offensively are just special. I mean, and so, we haven't even talked about the running backs yet. And so, I think points are going to go up on the board here. And 2 teams that have gotten where they are in large part because of their defense. Their offense kind of done what I think a lot of people were expecting. Maybe ours took a step forward this year. But I think it's going to be offense that probably wins this one. And so beyond that, I got nothing. I think it's going to be one heck of a show. I think we are, if we're not there yet, we're very close to our second straight sellout here in New Orleans, which, I mean, UCF selling out all the time. And so that's one thing, but it's been a bit here in New Orleans for this type of excitement. And so it was crazy when Memphis was here a few weeks ago for homecoming. And it should be even crazier here. I mean, this is the first ranked matchup Tulane has hosted since 1949.
That's crazy.
And so I can't wait. I think it's going to be a real show. I really do.
Yeah, it'll definitely. See, I was hoping you would know so you could tell me, because I'm kind of there with you. It's a tough one to figure out.
Yeah, and I think that what's the benefit here of where Tulane is. I mean, they played their way to this position where, they have 3 games left: UCF, SMU, Cincinnati, and that's a trio that's not to be trifled with, especially what SMU just did last week. But because they have jumped out in front here with 3 weeks to go, they have probably one grace in them if something goes wrong here over these these next 3 weeks, and still have a legit shot at the conference championship. It's probably a bigger game just on the schedule and for what's on the line for UCF, and for Tulane to be in that position. I think fans are still kind of a little taken aback by that they're in the driver's seat right now. Instead of playing catch up and hoping things fall their way, they do have control here. A loss Saturday and they're out of control of it. And so, but they do have a wiggle room here, and they're going to see 3 opponents coming up here to end the regular season that will not allow a lot of mistakes to be looked over. Like they'll make you pay these next 3.
Yeah, I tell you what, it is UCF's lucky to be in this position after their disaster at ECU, because I thought that was going to be, a tough one to bounce back from. But here we are, and it's a meaningful game in the first part of November, which is always great. And of course, we were talking before we started recording, and you don't have to disclose any details, but I know you got some wager opportunities with a good friend of yours who's a sports anchor in town. So
Zach Maskovich at Wesh. Yes. When I was at East Carolina calling baseball there, he worked at the CBS affiliate there in Greenville. So I got to know Zach I think we were there for 2 years together. And he has put up a wager where if Tulane wins, then Zach will buy me my first butter beer at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And if UCF wins, then I buy him a hand grenade on Bourbon Street. And so I'll be honest, I think that's like a double win for me regardless, because I know he's not going to have a second hand grenade. Like I'll have another butter beer. Like I've done it before. Hand grenades, they're one and done. And so and also hand grenades are much cheaper than butter beers. So I can swallow that pill should that bet come to roost. But yeah, Zach sent that my way this morning here. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Yeah, we'll keep tabs on that. Pardon the pun. All right, Corey, as always, I appreciate your time. And of course, please plug your coverage of Tulane sports.
Sure. Let's see. Well, basketball starting. It's crazy now. But yes. Saturday, you can find us on the Varsity Network app, wherever you might be around the conference and around the country here. We're on the air at 1:30 Central Time for this game, and that's a 2:30 Central kick from Yulman Stadium. And you're good. Whether you listen to me, whether you listen to Mark Daniels, I think he's been through a lot more of these games than I've been in terms of what's on the line here. But you're going to hear the passion of what this game means from both of us. Give us a listen if you're heading around out there on Saturday for what should be one hell of a game.
Outstanding, Corey. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jeff.
UCF and Tulane is a 3:30 kick on ESPN2. The Knights lead the all-time series 9-2, won last year's meeting by a 14-10 score. The honors for Player of the Week, the offensive side of the ball, Tanner Mordecai in that SMU high-scoring victory over Houston is the Offensive Player of the Week. 20-37, 379 yards, and a school and conference record 9 touchdown passes. He added 1 rushing to figure in 10 total touchdowns. He tied an NCAA record with 7 first-half TD passes and became the first player in FBS history with 7 TD passes and a touchdown run in a half. He was also named the Walter Camp National Player of the Week. The Defensive Player of the Week, Dorian Williams of Tulane, as they limited Tulsa to 1 touchdown, just 13 points and only 257 yards of offense. Williams had 13 tackles, 2 sacks, including 5 tackles on third down, as they held the Golden Hurricane to 5 of 14 on third down conversion. Enters week 11 as Tulane's leaders in tackles with 72, 4 sacks, and 6.5 tackles for loss. Special Teams Player of the Week is Camden Price of Temple. The transfer from Miami had a career-high 18 points, the most by an American Athletic Conference kicker this season, in their 34-point win over South Florida. 4 for 4 on field goals, all 6 of his PATs in that contest. Up next, we'll talk about the Women's Soccer Championship and more when the AAC report comes back right after this.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone.
Number 4 seed Memphis won its second straight AAC Women's Soccer Championship with a 1-0 win in overtime over 6-seeded SMU on Sunday at the UCF Soccer and Track Complex. It was the Tigers' 4th appearance in the championship final out of 5 years and their 3rd title. And with the win, the Tigers scored the Americans' automatic bid to the 2022 NCAA Division I Women's Soccer Championship. Meanwhile, UCF, the Americans' regular season champions, also made the NCAA tournament and will go on the road to face number 8 seed NC State on Sunday. And the winner of that contest will face the number 1 seed UCLA. The winner of that contest between the Bruins and Northern Arizona. Knights making their first NCAA championship appearance since 2017. In volleyball, the Americans still has 2 teams ranked in the top 25 of the AVCA coaches poll. Houston staying at number 23, while UCF remains 1 spot behind at number 24. Houston UCF 1-2 in the conference and headed for a big Black Friday rematch showdown as the top 2 so far in the AAC. The Offensive Player of the Week, McKenna Melville of the Knights. Averaged 6.79 points per set on the week, 6 kills per set, and hit .388 on the week, and had a season-high 29 kills in their 4-set victory over SMU. The Defensive Player of the Week, Rachel Tullis of Houston, a big force at the net, finishing the week 1.67 blocks per set in wins over Tulane and Cincinnati. Men's hoops underway. Houston opens up at number 3 in both the AP Top 25 and USA Today Coaches Poll. It is the highest the Cougs have been ranked in the preseason AP poll since 1983 and the Coaches Poll since 1967. Meanwhile, Houston senior guard Marcus Sasser and Memphis redshirt senior Kendrick Davis have been named to the watch list for the National Association of Basketball Coaches Player of the Year honors. That wraps it up for this week's episode. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And also feel free to check out my personal podcast, Jeff Allen Sports Talk. You can find it wherever you get your podcast and also at JeffAllenSportsTalk.com. And by the way, please follow the Nightline Sports Network as well, UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.